Everyone, excited utterance here. My name's Hella, and the juror who has come out to speak to a certain podcast about the Richard Allen verdict looks like the podcasters have come out to talk to Court TV about that particular broadcast. Wouldn't you know it? Because, well, I got something that came along in my inbox and it said that Court TV had a juror who'd come out to speak out. Got my hopes up and thought, oh wow, maybe we have another juror, or maybe we have this particular juror saying some more, but wasn't to be. Turns out it was the podcasters themselves who were doing the interview. But you judge for yourself. Is anything more being said? Let's have a look. As you can see, here are the podcasters.
Okay. And how about, Kevin, from your perspective, after having an opportunity to speak with this juror and hear what was
Talking with Vinnie
behind
Politan.
closed doors?
One thing that surprised me was this particular juror indicated there were certain bits of evidence that she found less compelling than others. And some of the evidence she found less compelling was, for instance, the ballistics evidence. But even without the ballistics evidence, and by that I mean crime scene that ties Richard Allen's weapon to that crime scene, even without that, she felt there was enough evidence to reach certainty beyond a reasonable doubt that this man killed those two girls.
And what was it that persuaded this juror? Was it the fact that Richard Allen was...
Actually, she said unreasonable doubt, but we could move on from that.
There that day and admitted that he was there that day?
Yes, that's certainly part of it, but I think it goes beyond that. And I think this is something a lot of us, including ourselves, struggled with the PCA because it gets into this, but you really have to see it play out in court to really understand the timeline evidence. But what you essentially have is Richard Allen consistently saying, I was here, I saw these people, and then those people see Bridge Guy, and people see Bridge Guy in the place where he puts himself. So essentially what he's doing is he is saying, I am Bridge Guy. And once you lock him into that position, which I think the prosecution in this case did an incredibly effective job at trial, basically building a wall around him. There's nowhere to go. He's Bridge Guy. Once you accept that he's Bridge Guy, it becomes a lot easier once you see that video evidence to accept that he abducted, humiliated, and brutally murdered those two girls.
So a big part of the defense, as we know, because we spoke about it so many times, was the theory that first came from the investigative team. A couple of members of that team believe that Odinists were involved in all of this. And I know that came up in your conversation. I want to play a...
Actually, that theory didn't first come from the investigative team. It came from the FBI and some investigators for the police. So that wasn't a defense theory. Let's just keep going.
Piece of that for the folks at home and let them know that the voice of the juror has been altered.
From a perspective of a juror that doesn't, I didn't know about like the Odinist stuff, or I didn't know that there were arguments of what can be shared and what not, like we didn't know anything about behind the scenes things. So from that perspective, when you're hearing, well, what do you think about the tree, the F on the tree, and you're just wondering, like, what the hell are they talking about? Like, I'm so confused.
So what's happening here with this juror? So the defense is making some arguments, or there's parts of this case and they feel like they're missing a piece of it. Is that what you took away from that?
Yeah, that is what we took away. Allude to things, perhaps in an attempt to get some of the things introduced in court, perhaps open a door there, but using the juror and the jury. And what we noticed, though, speaking with this juror, is that they were a little bit worried when we go home and Google everything. Are we going to feel comfortable with our decision? And the answer was a resounding yes. When they looked into Odinism, doing this research at home, they did not find it particularly compelling.
Okay, sorry, what was your name again? Was it Aine? A-I-N-E? I don't know how to say your name, but excuse me, how can you speak for the entire jury that they did not have any problem with their research, that they did not come to any other conclusion other than feeling very comfortable with their decision after doing research later. How can you say that? I have a big problem with you speaking for the jury, Aine.
So I think kind of the narrative that's formed of like, well, if only Odinism had been allowed in as a defense, they might have gotten an acquittal. I think that's bunk.
So
I think you're bunk.
This particular juror did go and take a look afterwards, which they're permitted to do, obviously, and read all the things that are out there and came to a conclusion that wouldn't change their mind.
That's exactly correct. She did a deep dive into this case. She read everything she could, our podcast. She listened to other programs, and taking all that information and processing it, she arrived at the same place that Judge Gold arrived at when she didn't allow this evidence into the trial. That basically,
what did she arrive at the same conclusion that Judge Gold arrived at, that Richard Allen was guilty before trial? Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Just thinking out loud.
there was no connection between Odinism and these tragic murders.
It's fascinating because, right, nobody knows more about the case and the evidence than the jury at the end of the day, right? Like, obviously the lawyers and the judge, but the jury, I mean, they're there for one sole purpose, to figure out what happened. And she took the next step after the trial to see what else was out there and still came to the same conclusion. That's fascinating, because she's seeing and reading things that, even if they were allowed to talk about Odinism, might not be admissible or permissible in there. And
this is appalling.
Have any other jurors spoken out at all, or is this the only one who has come forward?
This is the only one that has come forward at this time. I mean, we're certainly open to hearing from more jurors.
I'm sure you are very open to hearing from more jurors. And let's just hear that again. This is the only juror who spoke it out at this time. So, Aine and Kevin, isn't it? How do you know that the rest of them have done a deep dive, as you say, and are comfortable with their decision? I find that infuriating that you are saying this. And Court TV, you are supporting this narrative. So just because this one juror has gone and as she has said in her full interview with this podcast, that she has gone and listened to all of this podcast and their previous episodes. I don't know how she's done that, but apparently she has. Just as she said that she has done, that doesn't mean the rest of the jury has, and that they have looked into the Odinist angle, everything that was in the Franks memo of September 2023, and are feeling just fine with their decision. Do better, Court TV. Yep, so that's it from me. Stay tuned and subscribe and like this video. Subscribe to the channel, like this video. I've just about had enough of hearing about this juror. Yeah, let's hear from another one if they feel like it. But bring on Richard Allen's appeal. Peace.